Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're all could join us today. My name is Priya Balachandran. I'm a senior researcher at Northern Illinois Food Bank and the event co-chair on the executive committee of the Association of CNPs. I'm so excited to host today's session. While we wait for you all to get settled in, I will share a few housekeeping items. We invite you to keep the conversation going in the chat. We have a Q&A feature as well, so we don't want to miss any questions from the chat. You may want to mute your Microsoft Teams notifications during the meeting, as our chat can get quite lively. You're welcome to have your camera on. Mics will be disabled as the speakers share, and you will have the option to unmute during the Q&A by raising your hand. Our next certified nonprofit professional cohort begins June 22nd, 2026. If you're ready to take the next step, check out the chat for more details. And today's session is brought to you by the Association of CNPs, the professional organization of certified nonprofit professionals. One way the association supports its membership is by hosting sessions on the topics that are on the minds of nonprofit professionals and our CNP learners. These events are always free. If you would like to support the Alliance to continue these free webinars, check the chat. We have dropped the link for ways to donate. Thank you for your support. And coming to the session, today our speaker is Matt Pearl. Before we dive into today's session, here is a bit more about Matt. For over 20 years, Matt was a reporter and videographer working for stations like WXIA TV in Atlanta and Scripps National News nationally before launching Pearl Impact Media. His mission is to uplift nonprofits and purpose-driven businesses through meaningful, memorable video storytelling. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in today, Matt. Take it away.
Okay, hello, and I'm so happy to be here. I've given a lot of workshops before, but this is the first time I've done it from a hotel room where I am currently situated. I actually, up until about 30 minutes ago, I was shooting with a client here in Washington, D.C., but I made sure that that wrapped up in time for this because I am so excited to be here with all of you today. And yes, ATL represent. Thank you, Colleen, in the chat. That's very, very sweet. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is so great to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And while I do that, I just want to thank you all for, first of all, taking your time because it is Thursday. It is, a little after 1:30 Eastern. It's either the afternoon if you're in the Eastern time zone like me, and it's still the morning if you're on the Western time zone or Pacific time. But regardless, you're taking an hour out of your time, and we all have such busy schedules. You're taking an hour to be here and to focus on bettering yourself and bettering your organization. So I just want to say on my behalf that I do not take that lightly. I truly appreciate your presence here today, and I hope that this is valuable for you. I think that it will be. The other thing I wanted to say before I started is, I asked the team over at the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance to send me the list of attendees in advance, not necessarily people's names, but the organizations that you represent. And what I learned is, my gosh, you guys come from everywhere. I mean, we have everything from young nonprofits just establishing themselves, massive healthcare systems, and educational outlets, mid-sized nonprofits that have been around for a while. And it's such a beautiful community that you've developed here. In the time we have today, I'm going to provide insights that I think will benefit you and apply to whatever level you're at. I also think you'll find that when it comes to video, which is what we're talking about today, you'll find that the core tenets, why video works, why it doesn't work, why you use it, those apply across the spectrum. And it starts with a question that I'm going to throw out to everybody here. Why don't you use video? I'd also frame this as what stops you from using video. Maybe you have literally never posted or used a video. Maybe your organization has put up a video here and there, but you hold off on really investing in it. Maybe you have one signature video or a video that you roll out at a gala, but you hold off on consistent video content. I'd love for you to put into the chat, why don't you use video? And what stops you from using video? Because I think that's when we talk about that, that's going to go a long way towards understanding why we can use video and how we can best use video. So I will wait for some responses in the chat. They are coming fast and furious, so there are there are a lot of reasons why folks are not doing video. Let's have a look. So, not sure how to make it engaging. Cost, technology, not sure where to start. It's a lot of time and work to produce a video. Time consuming, lack of time consuming, time and energy and talent required to create video content. We don't have the resources or the personnel, wanting professional videos but finding it cost prohibitive. Ownership, not making it a priority. How to make it look nice. Editing is time consuming. I'm going to stop there, but clearly there are any number of reasons, any number of hurdles that turn people away from doing video. And that is a shame because video is, in my opinion, the most effective and powerful way to share your story as a nonprofit. But if you go through all these answers, these are all so incredibly valid, right? And there is a similar hesitation that I think runs through all of them. And that is you're just not sure it's worth the investment, right? Because video is an investment. It's either an investment in time, right? The time that all of you or many of you have mentioned, the time it takes to create content, the time to build the skills to do it right, time that saps resources from your team. So it's either that or it's money, right? If you're hiring an outside videographer who you're not sure is going to produce the results that you want. And I'm guessing many of you have heard that video is the answer, but when you see it in practice, it doesn't necessarily feel like the answer. What I always say is it's not about video. If it was just about video, that would be an easy cut and dry response. But we can't just use video because we think we should. It's about communicating impact, connecting meaningfully with your community, supporting your larger needs and goals, and owning your story. And when it comes to doing video right, it's not about video. It's about video that gets used and remembered because it truly represents you. People want video, but you want videos that don't just sit on a digital shelf. You want to be excited about them. You want to be excited to use them. You want to know exactly how and why you will use them. And you want those videos to truly represent all that you do. When that happens, results do happen, and they happen in ways you often can't anticipate. And frankly, the for-profit world knows how important this is because they invest all of their time and money into it. A survey of marketers last year found 89% of businesses use video. 93% of marketers say that video gives them a good return on their investment. And 99 say video has helped increase their understanding of their product. But the difference between them and you is so often they're selling you a product and convincing you that it matters to you, right? So if you watch a State Farm commercial and State Farm puts Caitlin Clark in their ad, they're not selling you their service. They're hoping you go, oh, I like Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark's in this ad for State Farm. Now I have positive feelings about State Farm. And when I'm interested in insurance, I'll have this nice little positive association, right? As nonprofits, you don't have to do that because you have something that so many businesses don't. You provide a service that makes the world better. You can lean in to what you do. And the more that you do that, the more that you show it, and the more that you show it authentically, the more you connect. And nothing has the potential to connect like video. Now, that is why I am here. For 20 years, I was a TV news reporter locally and nationally. I covered the Olympics 3 times. I won national awards for stories that found clarity and humanity in issues the news typically didn't cover. In other words, the issues that you cover, told the exact way that you should be doing too. And also, for nearly 15 years, I've been a nonprofit board member. I serve on the board at Lecatech of Georgia. We provide adaptive play sessions, toys, and community activities for children with special needs. I helped build our storytelling culture despite a small staff and a small budget. I'll share how we did that with all of you today. And now I run Pearl Impact Media, where I work with nonprofits around the country. I help them figure out their storytelling goals, and then I craft the videos that help achieve those goals. I'll put up my information at the end if you'd like to reach out directly. But as for today, my goal for all of you is to provide a foundational understanding of visual storytelling, to provide the roadmap to a strategy, no matter your size, and the confidence to try. But first, I'm going to show you a different video. It's not one of mine, but I think that it speaks to the struggle that a lot of us have about video, because I'm going to be honest with you, oftentimes I am greatly underwhelmed when I watch the videos that nonprofits pay lots of money for, and I want to address why that is. So to do that, I'm going to show you this montage, and while I do that, imagine that there's an organization that represents your city or your community, and this is what their video looks like. And I want you to write in the comments, why doesn't this work? So here we go. Again, write in the comments why this does not work. Now these are, beautifully produced. We've got vibrant colors, close-ups of hands holding, beautiful moments with family. There's a couple moving. We've got a sunset, just lovely footage. We've got some baking, another sunset. These are beautiful shots. Oh my gosh. I think they're called mega blocks. My kids had those. A third sunset, really beautiful. This very concerned man on the phone. Now, this looks better than anything we could shoot with an iPhone. So why is this not effective as video? Why aren't you moved? Why are you not moved to donate to this organization? Let's see. We've got, it's non-specific, no music, no sound, no context. It doesn't tell us who they are or what they do. It's just stock imagery or video. Looks like a generic commercial. Generic, keep that word in mind. Very broad, no storyline, no through line. What's the nonprofit? What do they do? Danielle Wallace writes, it doesn't speak to me. Doesn't tell a story. No storytelling. Okay. So a lot of really good responses there, right? And again, we can all agree that this is beautiful looking video, right? Probably shot with a beautiful documentary style camera. And there's also no denying that a lot of the images shown are very poignant images, right? A guardian or a grandparent playing with their grandchildren, right? A woman holding a child, these beautiful sunsets. These are all these are powerful images. And yet none of them moved you in any real way. So why don't most videos work? Here's what I see as a storyteller. First of all, the video is in slow motion, right? Real life isn't. There's no natural sound underneath it. Several of you said this. Real life has natural sound. If you're watching the sunset over the horizon on the coast, you're not just watching it, you're hearing the waves. But think of how many nonprofit videos don't include that natural sound, right? And then stock footage. I downloaded this footage from a subscription service. If I wanted, I could probably go to ChatGPT and have them reproduce this in 30 seconds. And yet, I would never want to do that. But too often, this is what our videos look like, right? Slow motion footage, often staged footage, generic music if there's music at all, a few scripted sound bites, and no real story. And what all of those clips are lacking is authenticity. So the answer to a lot of what we're trying to figure out comes down to that. And the other answer that matters a lot is the answer to a fundamental question about video storytelling that all of you should be asking about your organizations. And that question is why? Before you go anywhere with video, you need to be clear on why you're doing it, right? Video is a powerful tool and a broad umbrella. Video can be a 10-second TikTok, a minute-long testimonial from someone you serve, or a 3-minute signature video that you play at your gala or put on your website. And if you're going to use video, no matter your size, you need to answer these 3 questions. First, what are you trying to accomplish? Who are you trying to reach? And when you reach them, what do you want them to do? Think about what success actually looks like for you, right? Is it an increase in donations at an event? Is it a higher success rate with grant proposals? maybe a larger social media following, but only if that serves your goals. But can you whittle it down to one sentence? And here's a template that I would love for those of you who are who are willing to use this sentence for your organization and put it in the chat, right? The sentence is, I want to use visual storytelling to blank, reaching my audience of blank so that they will blank, right? And there, two different sentences can lead to two very different approaches to video, right? So let's say, for example, your primary objective is raising funds. Your statement might read, I want to use visual storytelling to raise funds, reaching my audience of current and potential donors so that they will contribute money to our mission. All right, so you know who you're trying to reach and what you want them to do. Now, see the difference when we change the objective to raising awareness. Now it's, I want to use visual storytelling to raise awareness, reaching my audience of the general public so that they will support us through donations, volunteerism, or advocacy. And these subtle differences, and again, write yours into the chat. I would love to hear that. But these subtle differences affect the types of videos that you might seek to produce, right? The fundraising nonprofit might focus on a singular video, a few minutes long, to play at an event or in a fundraising pitch. The awareness nonprofit might look for a larger quantity of shorter clips for a consistent presence on social media to develop their name and their reputation in their community. And the important thing here is you shouldn't try to do everything all at once. So again, share yours in the chat, and I'm seeing somebody wrote, repeat what I said, please. I'm not sure let me know what you'd like me to repeat, and I'm happy to do that. Meanwhile, thank you, Sybil, for writing your statement in the chat, and please, others, feel free to do the same. So you wrote, I want to use visual storytelling to increase awareness and build trust, reaching my audience of entrepreneurs and partners so they will consider applying for a small business loan, right? So you're not looking, so the kind of video that attracts funders is very different from the kind of video that attracts partners and the kind of video that attracts the entrepreneurs who you're looking to receive that application from, right? So it might be one signature video, but one where the messaging and the people that you put into it are very much squared at that. Or it could be testimonials. It could be a series of testimonials from people who have already applied for your loan. And again, I don't know your organization specifically, but just from that sentence, from folks who have applied for a small business loan and have seen success with it, maybe video for you looks like testimonials of those people talking about what it meant for them and how it benefited their business, right? And I'll read one more. Tom writes, I want to use visual storytelling to teach, reaching my audience of undergraduate students so that they will commit to a nonprofit career and understand the skills needed for them and nonprofits to be successful. Really, really interesting. And I would, it's a little outside of the bounds of nonprofits specifically, so I would love to hear more, Tom, about exactly like what you teach and the way that your students respond. But I would think, again, video that showcases nonprofits in your area, that takes people to those nonprofits instead of thinking about a nonprofit as like a nebulous concept, right, or a theoretical concept. Having a video that shows what it looks like inside the walls is really, really powerful. I'll do one more too. So I am going to do Rachel Moore, who writes, I want to use visual storytelling to raise awareness of our IDD programs, reaching my audience of caretakers and group homes so that they will enroll in our programs for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Really interesting, and actually it dovetails very well into what I'm going to share with you now, which is my own experience with Lecca of Georgia, where we work with children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I will tell you that Lecca brought me onto their board 14 years ago, and my charge was to build up our video and our social media. Our mission, our statement, our why was increasing engagement among our Lecca families. We didn't necessarily see social media in a fundraising context. We didn't need fundraising help necessarily. We weren't looking to necessarily attract new clients to Lecca, but we wanted our families to feel more connected to each other. And so we didn't try to cover every base, but we started with Facebook because that's where our families were. We wanted them to learn about our events, to see our newest toys, to continually feel energized about our services. We wanted to cultivate a community. 14 years later, our most watched videos reflect this. Here's a top video from 2025. Now, this is not stellar production value. Can you guys hear this, by the way? Throw some yeses or nos in the chats just to make sure you're getting the audio of this video. Um, this was our top video from 2025, and this is not stellar production value. This is not uh this is not a model video the way that I teach my clients. But what does it do? What does this video do? It speaks to parents of our Lecatech children. It is something for them to share, and it helps us build our community. Our other top video from 2025, we didn't even produce it, and I'm seeing we're getting no sound, no sound. I'm gonna there we go. You should be getting sound on it now. Thank you for letting me know about that. Our other top video from 2025, we didn't even produce it. We won a $100,000 grant from Gas South, and they surprised our executive director and made a video that they were happy to share with us. This was a prize where our community needed to vote for us, and we had to have the most votes, right? And they invested in us with their votes. And in this case, they invested in us again with their views because we invest in them throughout our social media. So it was the kind of thing where, oftentimes we ask people for their support. We ask people to vote for us in a thing, and then we never get around to letting people know how it went and saying thank you. And thankfully, we were given this video from Gas South that we were able to share on our own. So again, it all comes back to why. And then once we've established why, then we get in to what. What kinds of videos actually move the needle? Now, this video reminds us it's not necessarily about high production value or pretty pictures, right? It is about clarity or it is about clarity of purpose. And that's where we start here. So first we go back to who is my audience? Who am I trying to reach? What do I want them to do after watching? Right? There should be some action in your mind that you want them to take. And then this is a really important one that not enough of us in the nonprofit world ask. What does my audience want to hear from me? Right? So put yourself in the mind of whoever you're trying to reach. What's going to be the thing that tips the scales for them? Not necessarily what you want to share with them, but what do they want to hear from you? Not earlier this year, last year actually, I did a video with community farmers markets in Atlanta, Georgia. And they run 4 farmers markets. You see the picture of one of them. And they run these markets, they're weekly markets that go from March until November. Some of them are year round, and they get a big turnout to them. When we decided to make an impact video for them that they were going to play at their annual gala, we were trying to think, well, what do the people who show up at their markets, what do they not get to see? They don't get to see the lives of all the farmers who bring their products and bring their foods and everything that they sell. So for the story, I actually went out to two farms of vendors who sell their products at the market. And that was a really, really powerful thing that gave this community who we were trying to reach an added sense of buy-in and an added sense of, you know, I feel connected to this organization and I want to keep supporting them. And they wound up at that gala, they wound up raising between 2 and 3 times what they thought they were going to raise with that video leading into their big fundraising appeal. So it's a really good exercise to think about for your nonprofit. The other thing, especially if you're a small organization or just getting started, what are the easy wins, right? The things that don't take a lot of time to produce, the things that don't need a lot of instruction on how to do it right. So, like the everyday moments, the moments that you get to see that you wish others got to see too, the moments that when you come home at the end of the day to your family or you're meeting friends out for dinner and they ask you what you do or what you did today, you can't wait to share what happened at work today because you witness minor miracles every day doing the work that you do. Behind the scenes, take your audience inside your walls, bring them in, show them what it looks like, right? Because if you think about it, when we do a 30-second elevator pitch, if all we have is the written word or the just the spoken word, We're using the same words and the same vocabulary as everybody else, and it can make our nonprofits sound a lot like others that are in our space, even if we do different things, because a lot of the buzzwords are the same, and a lot of the impacts that we hope to achieve are the same. But take people behind the scenes, show them what it actually looks like, and you are showing them a side of yourself that no one else can replicate. Finally, testimonials. Reach out to the clients in your orbit who have been incredibly benefited by the work you're doing. Stakeholders, partners, community. I love this question. Who are your evangelists? Who are the people that if you just put your cell phone camera in front of them, they cannot wait to share why your nonprofit is so wonderful and they just want to say it again and again and again. Those are the people who are going to really get across what you're trying to convey. And then finally, a really important question when we think about what to show. Are you willing to be vulnerable? One of my last stories, and I hope the video is not too choppy, but I think with the audio too, it'll hopefully carry the message. But one of my last stories as a journalist was a documentary about student parents, college students who are going to school while raising a child. In my research, I spoke with organizations that work in this space and advocate for these students. But when it actually came time to do the documentary, I didn't interview any of them. Instead, I spent a full day in the life of 4 student parents and I interviewed them. I'm going to play for you the trailer. And again, I apologize in advance if the video is choppy. Hopefully, the audio is not. Hopefully, the audio comes through. And I want you to focus on why I chose this particular way of telling their story that focused on these individuals themselves.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Gotcha.
I'm empowered every day, going to school,
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
being a father.
You're losing.
Remember, enfrente, atrás, arriba. I want my son to learn how to be fearless in this world, despite anything that goes his way. Oh my God, my class is in 20 minutes.
Good for you.
So you've been in college for 6 years.
Yes.
Your nose is red, so you're really Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
No, I'm not.
Okay, sorry. Okay, we'll be back.
You never know whether like a person would be willing to help you unless you ask. And I don't do that. I don't ask.
Good evening. A lot of what, I think about every day is that, it's not his burden to bear.
She sees me, taking classes at nighttime, or she sees me being in school.
My laptop died. If you're taking one class a semester and it takes you 8 years to get through, that's okay because you're doing it.
I am a single father. Love you.
Love you too.
I work full-time and also go to school full-time. It is hard as hell. It's all for a purpose. It's all for a reason, and it's unique to me.
All right. I would love for you to put in the chat, and let me know also if the video was okay quality-wise in terms of choppiness, but I'd love for you to put in the chat the moments in that trailer that stood out to you, and what about it moved you. I'll give you guys a few seconds. Sybil writing, it's authentic, it's granular, it's zoomed into the reality of what their lives are like day to day, highly relatable. Colleen writing, when he said it is hard as hell. We're going to get back to that, Colleen. Alicia, all of it's so inspirational, brings the people to life. Glenn writing, I see what you mean about how good it is to capture authentic behind the scenes stuff like my laptop died. Yes, the dead laptop as soon as class starts. I want to share, by the way, and this is actually the 3rd workshop I've done in the last month where I have played this video. And every time I always keep it in the presentation. I'm always excited to share it because it's such a good example of what we're talking about. But B, the mom whose laptop died just graduated from Georgia Gwinnett College, and she graduated with so many honors and was the commencement speaker at graduation as well. So I am so happy. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about today, but I love to share that because one of the great things, and it actually does have a lot to do with what we're talking about, because one of the great things that happens when you spotlight the people who you serve is that you then get to follow up with them and you get to follow their journey over time. So very excited to share that news. But let's get back to why this works. And again, you've all pretty much pointed out that this just felt real. And it's important to notice that these aren't the most media trained people, right? They weren't prepped for this interview. They just are well spoken, thoughtful, and because they live this day in and day out, they have very real things to say about it. And some of the best moments in that trailer aren't even from the parents, right? They're from the kids. The one that when I play this and it's in person, the one that people always they just always laugh at is when the mom says, "You think you're Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer," and the kid says, "No, I'm not." And I have an 8 and a 6-year-old, and I know exactly what that feels like. And it's just wonderful, right? But you would never script something like that if you were scripting the ideal nonprofit video. You would never think of that moment. But those are the moments that we have to realize when they're happening, how valuable that is. And to go back, Colleen, to what you said about the single father's name, whose name is Shakur, he said, "It is hard as hell." Now, if I took a poll of everybody on this webinar right now, how many of you have jobs that are hard as hell? I bet 95 to 99% of you would raise your hands and say yes. If you work for a nonprofit, there's a very good chance your job is hard as hell. Now I want you to think about how many nonprofit leaders, executive directors, anybody, chief development officers, anybody like that, how many people would actually say that phrase on camera? How many of you would say it is hard as hell? Suddenly we get nervous, right? Because A, it requires a certain level of vulnerability, and B, because, it uses the word hell. Thank you. Uh, thank you. The person who said me. I appreciate that. I'm glad you would. Yeah, I like to see that, Sybil. Absolutely. Glad you would too. I'm glad some of you would. And Dominique, thank you very much for also writing the pronunciation of your name, and I appreciate you sharing that. I think I'm glad that you both would, and I think there are folks who would. I also think it's the kind of thing, the kind of prospect that either scares people to do it, or it's just not what they would think to say first, because we're all trying to think of the polished sentence that says everything we're trying to say and winds up feeling like word salad, right? So I hope this helps a lot in terms of understanding. Again, I shot this. This was part of a documentary. I used documentary level video equipment, the same that I use today. But a lot of these moments that you saw that you were moved by could easily be captured with a cell phone camera as long as you're paying attention, right? And as long as you're in the moment to capture it. So we've talked about why. We've talked about what. The next question is how. How do we build a strategy? How do we build a culture in our organization that values and prioritizes visual storytelling? Well, step one is consistency. Knowing your audience, and we've talked a lot about knowing your audience, knowing your strengths, right? Knowing the things that you can convey through video that nobody else can. And then I really want to focus on these last two, your resources and your limitations. And the reason I'm going to focus on these last two is because it requires a lot of honesty from anyone involved, right? What are your resources? Do you have money to hire outside help? Is that even an option, right? Can your staff take on an extra responsibility or two? Because that's often what building a video strategy requires. And in all cases, what can you realistically expect as far as results? And this is so important because this is where many organizations just shut it down before they get started. All those reasons that you guys listed at the beginning, even even if you get past them and then you start down the path of video and maybe you put up a couple of things on social media and they, maybe they get like one or two likes and you just don't feel like it's making any kind of a dent. That's the moment where so many nonprofits then say, okay, well, we gave it a shot. Let's go back to what we know. And I would just invite all of you, and the fact that you are on this webinar shows that you want to develop this skill and you want to develop this culture. I would invite you to give yourself the grace to start small, learn as you go, and figure it out. That's what we did at Lecatech. When I joined the board, everybody on our staff was devoted to the mission, but very few had background in video or social media. And that's where I came in. One of the first things that I saw was that we had so many beautiful moments happening all around us that only our staff got to witness. What if we shared those? And this was a mindset that developed gradually. It took a little while, but our staff members know, and they've known for a while now, when moments are happening at events or at play sessions, they should capture them. And it doesn't feel out of place because that's what we're all doing in our personal lives already, right? When great things happen, we want to pull out our phones, capture them, and share them. And yet, we oftentimes have a block or a hurdle that stops us from doing this with our organizations. Today, these are the kinds of videos that show up, and I've turned off the audio so that I'm able to talk over them, but these are the kinds of videos that mostly populate our Facebook, our Instagram, even our LinkedIn. These aren't fancy documentary videos. These aren't videos that I've shot for them. These are videos that were shot during our sessions because our team members know to look for them. And they don't require any extra editing. They don't require any additional production. They just get the job done. And one staff member even does take on the extra step of creating compilation videos like these. So she'll take the individual clips and then she'll put them together. Again, there's no story necessarily. There's no narrative. That can come in the caption or in the post surrounding it. But we are building a library here, right? We've built up a culture over more than a decade, but it started with basic questions and not trying to do too much too quickly, right? It started with just saying, here's a simple thing that we would like you to do. And two other things I want to point out here, right? First of all, everything you're seeing here in this on this slide, it becomes B-roll, right? We can repurpose this into bigger projects and use it to interact with other media, right? So it's serving a purpose. And then the other thing we're doing, we're building a library that we can use in any different ways. And it goes back to that long-term thinking, right? It's not just about making the video that's going to get you, go viral and get you a bunch of likes on Instagram. It's about achieving the mission that you've set out in your why. Now, there's also the technical part of how we do this, right? What are your tools? And if you want, you can invest in products like the ones that I'm showing you on this slide. Now, I want to be clear. I have not used these specific ones. The brands I know to be pretty strong, Rode and Movo. And when you look at exactly what they are, they're low-cost tools that might solve some of your biggest needs, right? So a nice tripod and a light setup will make your videos look a little more visually pleasing. A lavalier microphone that you clip onto your lapel helps you get really crisp sound. And to be honest, what you hear in a video can often be more important than what you see in the video. So these kinds of things might be worth the investment. But if we're being honest, if you're doing it yourself, mostly you just need an iPhone or your phone. It can be a Google Pixel too. They're easy, they're nimble, they don't require setup, and frankly, what's more important than your gear is your message, right? I could pan over in my hotel room here and show you $20,000 worth of camera equipment. But for what I'm doing right now, giving this webinar, I don't need that. I just need the camera on my laptop. And if you're not hiring someone like me, your message and your clarity of mission far outweigh the tools. The tools are great with a specific purpose. But for those of you trying to do this on your own, not having the tools should not be a reason to give up. As for techniques, use a microphone. I find that very, very helpful. That is one piece of equipment I would invest in. And if you watch a lot of social media reels now, a lot of them do invest in microphones. Finding your light source when you are when you're doing like a video where you're on camera or somebody you're interviewing is on camera. And basically what that means is your light source is wherever the largest amount of light is coming from, right? So if you're outside, it's the sun, and if you're inside, it's usually a window or maybe like top lights. But ultimately, you want that light source to kind of bathe the person who is speaking. And then editing software. Canva is, of course, free for nonprofits. iMovie and CapCut are really strong. Um, and I would say that, I remember somebody asked me about, is it worth investing in like a large, one of the more heavy duty editing programs? And I would say that like for those of you who are especially video inclined, Final Cut Pro is a $300 piece of software that you only have to pay for once. It's not a subscription. And you can do a lot with that. It's how I edit everything I do. And I will say that like it gives you a lot more freedom and control than you get with some of the software that's online. But what I would say, for those of you using like the Canvas and everything, the allure of Canva, you go on there and they've got all these different transitions like star wipes and and all these different dissolves and everything. I would still say at the end of the day, simpler is better. Straight cuts, maybe dissolving in and out might be fine sometimes, but ultimately, people aren't looking for, the bells and whistles. They don't want like differently, like digitally altered footage or anything like that. Like they want to see you. Authenticity. Keep that in mind because that's the number one thing you can do as an organization when you're sharing your story. And where can you use video? I mean, there's just so many different places. Social media, email blasts, thank you notes, annual reports, fundraising pitches, grant proposals, and of course, major events, which is where you really want to invest in larger video. And I'm checking in the questions. And Crystal makes a really, really good point. There are so many how-to videos on YouTube for any of those softwares that you can really learn a lot pretty quickly. Again, that's an investment, right? You still have to invest time to watch videos and try to get your skills up. But with some of these lower barrier to entry software that are out there, it can really make a difference. If you're getting started, here are the steps I would take. If you're just getting started, I would say shoot a video with no pressure to post it, right? So just turn your phone camera around and just riff for 30 seconds. And, it can be about whatever you want, but the whole point is that you're not under pressure to post it. Then, ask the guidance of your team and your peers. Figure out, what is the context? Like, what's something that I would actually want to say in a video that my audience might want to hear? And then once you've done all of that, and once you've tested it, and once you feel good about it, that's when you post it. And again, post it giving yourself that grace, knowing that, first of all, viral videos almost never happen, right? It is a perfect storm of factors that that cause a viral video. But also keeping in mind that like if your video doesn't hit on social media, if it gets like 1 or 2 likes, in most cases, most people aren't even going to see it because the algorithms on these social media platforms will just drop it right out of sight for most people. So it on one hand, that's kind of a bummer, and that's something that we have to figure out is how to, consistently post videos that people will respond to. But it also gives you a little freedom to try and fail and not worry that, everyone is going to see your post that only got 1 like on it. That's not how it works. And if you're ready for a larger strategy and are thinking about hiring outward, here's the general rule of thumb with this, right? The DIY approach, it's less expensive, and more importantly, it enables you to be more consistent and more present. If you train your staff, they can be there to capture great moments when they happen. If you need short, consistent videos, especially in low stakes contexts like social media, the DIY approach often makes the most sense. Hire when, first of all, you have the budget. Second, when you need storytelling expertise, somebody who really understands that statement that you've crafted, the message that you're trying to convey, and how to effectively do it. And then really you hire someone when you have a big stage with a big potential for returns, right? A black tie gala is not the time for an Instagram reel. You need a moving, emotional, narratively focused video that shows your audience exactly why they should invest in you. There's a financial investment, but the return on that investment should be more than worth it when you do it the right way and when you hire somebody who when hire somebody that does do that the right way. In the end, it's about consistency. It's authenticity, right? Remembering that the most powerful moments are almost always the realest. And it's ethics. And I want to make sure that I emphasize this in my workshops because it's so important and so easy to overlook. But it's so important that we establish a way to protect the ones that we serve. And that is a much longer conversation that we can have, but that is, I would say, sometimes the most important thing that we can do when we're investing in videos, making sure that we are open and honest with our clients if we're wanting to include them in a video about what they're going to about what they can expect and really move forward in that way. I want to pause here. I know we have about 10 minutes left. Is there anything we haven't covered before I want to dive in a little more on ethics, but is there anything we haven't covered that you want to make sure that I mention in the time that we have left? So put those questions in. Sorry?
Matt, we have a couple
Yes.
of questions in the Q&A. So one
Okay.
is related to what you're touching on. So Lara asks, what are the best practices for making videos when we have confidentiality and cannot use any real people in service?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So there are a couple of things you can do in that situation. And I would be very careful about about trying it on your own when it comes to involving the people you serve. So first I would say, let's talk about that. If you want to include your clients, there are certain ways you can do it that protect that confidentiality. There's an interesting concept called composite storytelling, where you can take multiple client stories and combine it into like a kind of sample story. And as long as you declare that this is a composite of what your clients go through, that's a way that you can tell a story without without divulging confidential details. Um, Certainly, and again, I would recommend doing this if you're hiring somebody specifically that knows how to do this and understands trauma-informed storytelling. I would say that person can do a lot with, there are things you can do with voice modulation to protect people's voices. You can always not show faces. You can blur out people's faces or just show their hands. There are any number of ways that, again, I would leave that in a professional's hands, but there are a lot of ways you can do it. But then I would say too that if you're not comfortable with that, and there's every reason for that to be a totally justified thing to not be comfortable with, right? Then think of who else you can share their story. Think of who else can share their story, right? So maybe it is partners who you work with. Maybe it's your staff. Maybe it's volunteers. Who are the people who can share stories where they're not divulging details, but they can reveal vulnerabilities, and they can not just reveal vulnerabilities, maybe that's not the right way to put it, but they can kind of give people a window into why your services are valuable. So I would encourage you to broaden your spectrum so that you're not necessarily relying on the people you serve to be your main source of this kind of material. Anything else, Priya, before I go on?
And we have one more question, not very related, but one more question in QA. Jalissa asks, how can you quickly turn seniors to start going to videos to learn, other get information, maybe learn and get information?
Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. Would you mind repeating the question? I
Sure.
heard, yeah, go ahead.
How can you quickly turn seniors to start going to videos to learn, other get information? I think it should be learn and get information, maybe.
I'm a little unclear on I'd probably need a little more detail. Is the person who asked that, would they like to unmute and ask
Yeah.
that directly? I'd love just a little more background into where you
Mhm.
work and what you're trying to accomplish.
Jalissa, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
So I posted this on behalf of one of our audience members. So audience member, if this is your question, can you raise your hand in Microsoft Teams and we can unmute you so you can ask live? I'm not sure that they are still here. I don't see a
Okay.
hand.
All right. Well, while
They
we
are still
wait
here.
for, oh, yes,
I'm
go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt you. I'm not gonna pronounce her name correctly. Obiageli? She was the one who asked that before. What I thought it was basically sometimes seniors are reluctant to learn information through videos. They're more like one-on-one training, things like that. So she's asking kind of how can you encourage them to start realizing videos have genuine information and how to take them to that place to learn the information. Hopefully I
Mm.
interpreted that correctly.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think seeing is believing to some degree. I think making video part of the workflow to a point where they almost need to interact with it, to be able to see it would probably be helpful. That's a really good question. I would say that if it's something where you're in person with them too, I would go ahead and show a snippet of a video or show a sample of a video that, where you're trying to show the benefits of it. Because I think if you're talking about senior citizens specifically, and it's somebody who maybe prefers a different medium, then I do think you need to also respect that, and maybe understand what it is about that, is there a way you can cater to that a little bit? Maybe video is not quite the answer, but I do think that providing some hand holding about where to find it, about how to engage with it and how to interact with it, I think can be at least one way to get folks started. So I'm going to, since we're about 5 minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and just put up my information because I imagine that I'm going to keep answering questions and I'm happy to stay on a little longer too. But I did just want to put this out here. If you'd like to set up time to chat with me directly for more of a private conversation, you can use the QR code here or reach out to me at pearlimpactmedia.com and set up a time to chat. The code on the screen leads to my online calendar. I work with nonprofits of all sizes, often in different ways. Small nonprofits often bring me in for one-on-one coaching and basic building of a strategy, more detailed and personalized next level version of what we discussed today. And then larger nonprofits hire me often for those impact videos, those gala videos, or as a long-term video partner to create consistent, excellent stories about their work. As I've said, this work absolutely energizes me. I've seen the results it brings for my clients. I'm based in Atlanta, but I work with and travel for and travel for nonprofits all over the country as I'm doing right now. So I would love to learn more about what you're doing, discuss your strategy, and bring those results for you. I'll leave this up here, but I would love to continue to take questions. And I'm seeing the chat. I'm not seeing the Q&A. So if there are questions in the Q&A that you
I think that's all
would like to ask
questions we
for.
have in Q&A, but I see one more question in the chat. How do we repurpose content across various platforms to extend its life from Mission?
I think that's a great, great question, Mitchell, and a very, very reasonable one. So the one thing that I would always say, and I'll use that example before of my experience with Lecatech, where, our staff members shoot all of these videos, we can repurpose that into larger compilation videos. Um, I've done a few impact videos for us where I've used videos and photos where I've like peppered them in. I think they work great in social media posts and in email blasts, depending on the context, right? Like it has to fit your mission and fit your question. But the one thing I would say is that when you are doing so it's important to keep those raw clips that you can then turn into something larger. But I would also say that when you're working on the larger videos, make sure you're saving the raw footage so that you can reuse it later. And that's the easiest thing, to not have to try to like pull a clip out of an edited video that's got many different layers on it. I will say that, when I do a video for a client, I'll interview somebody for 20 minutes and I'll use maybe 20 seconds of it in the video. So there's all this other great content, and I always offer it to my clients that, um, you know, that, hey, if you guys want more, like you guys have, a month's worth of social media posts here just from what this one person had to say. And so I think, making sure you're saving your raw footage, whatever that may be, will help you repurpose it down the road.
Sounds good. And the next question is, what about using AI to make videos, such as adding pictures and videos and asking AI to do the work?
Yeah, I think um, so there, and again, AI is very, very broad, right? So AI can reproduce that stock footage that I showed earlier, and that would be a terrible idea to do that. That, goes against the authenticity that you're trying to show. Um, I think, but AI can also mean like in Canva kind of auto-producing an animation, or, taking multiple clips and putting it into a compilation on its own without you having to do it. And I think there is some potential value there. I would just say if you're going to use it in that context, you just have to be really careful. I will tell you a quick story. I was at an event, and it was hosted by a nonprofit, and it was a panel discussion, and one of the panelists was with a separate nonprofit, and he wanted to play this video talking about what they're doing. And within 5 seconds, you could tell it was an AI video. And not only was just like everything was was a really just looked generic, because that's what AI often does. It just makes everything look generic. But there were graphics and pictures where they had words spelled wrong. And there was one where it was supposed to say the Georgia Aquarium. It was supposed to be like a shot of the Georgia Aquarium, but it said the Georgia like Aqueum. It was like ACQUEE. It was so strange. And sure enough, there was like a little AI company logo on the bottom right-hand corner of it. And I'll never forget it, because the person sitting next to me, who I didn't even know, looked at me and he said, "I don't know what that was supposed to be." And so I just think it is way more powerful. There are plenty of ways you can use AI, right? So it's a very broad umbrella, but I would just be very careful about it. And if you can invest the time to learn some easy ways to do it on your own, it comes back to that authenticity. AI can't capture the moments that happen right in front of you, right? AI can't record a video for you. So I think that's really important. And I am seeing a question about, should I have patients sign a release if I'm using their story? I absolutely. And most of the time, I know when I work with nonprofits, they already have a photo and video policy that they have for their people. So I would say if your nonprofit does not, I would absolutely recommend that. In some cases, that will help you legally as well. So yeah, absolutely. What other questions do we have?
That's all the questions I see for now.
And is there anyone who, I mean, people can raise their hands too if folks want to ask um, anything. I'm seeing a question from Ruby. What is the industry standard or a good guideline on how long you use a story or footage? I'm assuming, Ruby, that you're saying that you're asking, like, should you use the same story for a year or for 2 years or for 3 years, right? Um, I think a lot of that just depends on the timeliness of the video. I think usually, the most evergreen videos like what I produce can usually last about 2 or 3 years. But I think there's something very valuable about having a timely element to the video that you show, if possible. When I was in news, that was always like the number one thing. Is there, you know, what's the hook, right? What makes this relevant right now? And I think when we go to your question, Ruby, about how long to use a story or footage, I would say the moment it feels like that footage doesn't represent who you are right now or why people should care right now, that's the time to make a new one. But again, if you're doing it yourself and you're doing much shorter, more consistent clips, I think then, it's such a lower time commitment and investment that you really don't need to try to stretch out your content that long. Or you can find a way to repurpose it in a way that does feel more current and more immediate. So I hope that answers your question. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask? Just unmuting and asking.
Thank you for that insightful presentation, Matt. That was great. I think Colleen is raising her hand.
Yes, Colleen, go ahead. I think you need to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I'm trying. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I do whenever I'm creating video is I always create a subfolder of what I call the best clips from an event. And I do that because later on it enables me, if I'm doing a bigger video, to have what I would consider like, best clips that could be used for another compilation video. But also, if I need to go back and find it, it means I don't have to look through 2 hours of event footage. And so that's just a little helpful tip that I thought I would share, because I recently came across that where we were working on something, and it would have been very helpful to have that.
Yeah, my executive director does the same thing. She calls it her cream of the crop folder.
Yes.
And it's totally, I mean, that makes so much sense, right? It's for exactly the reasons you said. Rather than have to go through, loads of footage and clips whose names aren't distinguishable at all, you have these go-tos that you can use at any time. Or if you're working with an outside vendor, you can just send them that folder, and then they know exactly what they already have that they can work with. So yeah, great point. Thank you for sharing that. All right.
Anyone else? Anyone else would like to ask a question? If not, I think we can start wrapping up. Thank you, Matt, again for your insightful conversation, as well as staying, for some more time to answer all the questions. Thank you, everyone, for your active participation in the chat today. It's time for the session to come to an end. As a reminder, the Association of CNPs host events like this throughout the year. We will be sure to send the recording of the session out within the next few days. Check out our chat for more information on the upcoming events. You can also donate and help us continue these free sessions by clicking the links in the chat. We invite you to take a brief survey to share your feedback on today's webinar. Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Bye all.